Hello and welcome back, Steam Workshop, Romulus Resto mod. This is episode 31 and I am fast running out of things to do. Yesterday, after running the engine on air, realised that there was no air getting into the steam manifold. Somebody forgot to drill a hole. Don't know who that was, not going to name any names. But as everyone knows, it was me. Yeah. So, first things first, I took everything apart. Pulling all the valves off, I'm able to get the steam manifold off, and here you might be able to see it. I haven't drilled through the bottom of that. Once it's all drilled out, back on it goes. Reconnect all the pipework. And then once all the pipes are on and tightened up, it's a quick plug in the air and give everything a quick function check. Yeah, so from this angle, you can see the pressure gauge is sitting around about 100 psi mark. It's a little bit over because it's running on cold air instead of hot steam. I'm going to wind the blower open, and you can see the paper has got quite a good force of air coming up the chimney there. Can't hold the paper over the chimney, it's that strong. That might need toning back a little bit. The safety valves are constantly going off here because the air compressor runs at around about 140 psi, and I'm just allowing the safety valves to control the air pressure. This valve here, this operates the steam brake, the steam drain cocks, and operating the lever, it opens and closes the drain cocks. In the rear position, you can hear it exhaust, steam manifold fixed. Now I'm going to move on to sorting out some lubrication for the axle boxes. This is a task that I thought of really early on in the project, just never actually thought about getting it done before I put the engine together. This would have been so easy before the boiler went back on, but nope, I had to leave it to the last possible second. Yesterday when we were playing around, couldn't quite reach to get oil into the axle boxes, so I've decided I'm going to be knocking up some oil pots to go with it. Now these oil pots I bought about 4 years ago. They're all the way from China. I thought I was ordering 12. I ordered 12 packs of 12. So we ended up with 144 of these oil pots, and the project I was on only needed 10. The threaded portion on the bottom is M10 by 1, a very weird size. What I need to do is I need to turn it down to 5/16 32, just like this, to accept a nut and nipple ready for some pipework. Now the pipework consists of these lovely things. They're pre-bent. I don't know what they're for, don't know where they came from. It's just something we've had lying around for quite a while now, and they're really, really useful. I just need to trim them down a little bit so they don't drop so low. So just trimming a small amount off of the short bent area before popping off and soldering them up, which I will do off camera. So after the pipes are all soldered up, cleaned up, a little bit of a tweak with a file to get the nuts back on, it's on to making some mounting brackets. Now this is an offcut. It's something I made a while ago, which we ended up chopping off, and this is just out of my little scrap bin. So it's a 25mm angle iron. I'm just chopping down a couple of 75mm long pieces, which I'm then going to be drilling and tapping to screw these oil pots into. Okay, so with the holes drilled and tapped in the angle iron, I'm just mounting up the oil pots and the pipework here just as a quick test fit. I'm kind of test fitting every step of the way here, just making sure it's all going together nicely and looking good. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark up exactly in between the wheels. So the wheels turn out to be 210mm apart. So line drawn in the middle, dot punched, a little bit of a pilot hole going on here. I'm just putting a cloth over the top of that valve rod just so I don't scratch any of the paint off. And I go through with a smaller drill bit and then come back with a larger drill bit and open it up. A little bit of hindsight, I should have just gone straight through with the larger drill bit, because it wasn't that large. It's only a 6mm drill bit, just big enough for me to put a bolt through. Here I'm just going through with a deep hole marker and marking onto my angle iron, drilling a hole, and then chucking the M6 bolt through the frames and sliding on the pot assembly on the back. Little bit of a fiddly job this, trying to get my hands contorted around underneath the boiler, between the frames, underneath a piece of angle iron, and putting a nut on an M6 bolt. A little bit awkward, but I managed to get it done. Okay, so while I'm painting those, I'm just going to move on to sorting out the injector overflows. So first of all, taking the injectors off of the locomotive, and then I'll be moving over to the bench to do a little bit of measuring. Now one of the injectors has got a small pipe attached to the bottom of it, which I'm able to just grab hold with a set of pliers and unwind it. Really handy because I'm then able to measure off of that. So I check the outer diameter, and then I've got a handy dandy tool in my my little spanner box. What I did is I disassembled a set of thread gauges, and this set of thread gauges here has only got the ones I actually use. So it's got 24, 26, 28, 32 and 40 on it. It's got no other ones on there. You don't have to shuffle through as many. It's really, really handy taking off the ones you never use. Yep, just a cheap and cheerful set of thread gauges and a bolt. Now, on to threading a piece of pipe. First of all, I'm selecting the right size thread and just tapping around about 1/4 of an inch onto the top of the pipe. Then I can wind the injector on, and then I get myself set up ready for bending it. So I actually clamp the pipe benders in the vise here, makes it a little bit easier. I can line everything up in orientation of where the injector is pointing. So making sure its thread has stopped in the injector, so the bend's perfect. And then I use a zip disc and just chop it off, so I get a nice angle on the bottom of the pipe. Just makes it look a little bit like it's meant to be like that. Quick deburr on the wire wheel, everything shaking around like mad on my bench there, and then I loosely assemble it back onto the engine. I'm not doing these up fully because I will be taking these off again to clean them up and steam test them. Hope to do that tomorrow, and also remove all that red paint off them. It doesn't suit the engine, and I'll paint them black. Yeah, so I'm not tightening the nuts up. I'm just loosely assembling because I'll come back. Both overflows stay within the profile of the engine, so they're not going to get caught on anything. Another job off the list. While I'm here, I've just knocked up this little piece of brass into a bracket just to hold these pipes up out of the way. Noticed when we were playing around on yesterday with the air test that these pipes were banging around a little bit, so got them tucked up out of the way, not getting hit by anything anymore. Another job off the list. Now it's time to get these oil pots on. So they've had a fresh couple of coats of black paint, tighten up the oil pots into the bracket, and then this is the awkward side. Because of all the other pipework in the way, there's nowhere for your hands to go. So you've got to try and reach through and under and around, and yeah, you've got to have... Luckily I've got quite slim hands and quite small arms. I am a skinny bloke up top, not round the belly, but up top I'm quite skinny. But yeah, just getting this nipped up, looking good. Then it's time to mark and mount the pipes. So just reaching through with a ruler and gathering a measurement to put the first bend in. So I'm bending the pipes so they're facing downwards, and then I'm just putting a little bit of a bend in and chopping off any excess so they can angle in and land in between the springs and down above the hole in the axle box. So lubrication is all gravity fed. Really tricky here. I lost count of how many times I've dropped the spanner trying to tighten up the unions in here. But yeah, very, very, very difficult putting these in. As I say, would have been a lot simpler if I'd have done this before I put the boiler back on. And I've just moved the camera here to a slightly different angle. I've been using a light this past few days on my camera, so one, you're able to see underneath the tanks here what's going on. It's doubling up as a work light for me, and here you can see, I've dropped the spanner at least twice there, trying to get that bloody thing tight. But yeah, all looking good. And then it's just rinse and repeat on the opposite side. A little bit easier on the opposite side due to the fact I've actually got space to work. Okay, so going into these oil pots is a piece of absorbent pipe cleaner. Can't buy cheap pipe cleaners; they don't really do the job right. This has got almost like a cotton-like material on it, so it's able to wick the oil out the bottom of the oil pot over the top of the tube that's in the middle of it. So it's got a reservoir, and it's got a wicking feed. And I've just slotted half a pipe cleaner in each of them, bent over at the top, so it's the bottom of the pot, comes up over the pipe in the middle, and down at least an inch into the top of the pipe. And then a little bit of oil goes in the top of it. I'm not going to put loads in because this will just wick away. The pot holds about 5 millilitres of oil. If I put too much in, I'll come in tomorrow, it'll be all over the floor. So just a little bit to prime the wicks. And that is another job crossed off. So here, I'm just making a notch in the back running board just to allow the draw pin to drop in. Now, originally, this had a second 10mm plate in behind the block there that holds the draw pin. The coupling block, words are defeating me at the moment. But yeah, so I'm just notching out the frame here. The back of this piece of angle, you'll barely notice it once it's all painted black, but it's just so you're able to drop the draw pin in. And here you see, draw pin goes in. Now these draw pins are not getting recycled. I made some new ones. Just taken some M10 high tensile bolts, turned the hex off one end, chopped the excess off at the other end, and drilled a hole for the R-clip. No chain going on here, just nice and sleek, nice and clean. There we go. Draw pins and the bars. There's an absolute massive box full of bars that came with this engine. So moving on to making some buffer stocks. Now this is quite a scrappy piece of oak. We have lots and lots of chunks of timber all over the place in the workshop. And this it's got quite a pronounced cup, a twist, a warp, a big shade down the middle of it, cracks everywhere. So yeah, I'm really doing my best to get a pair of buffer blocks out of this. So there is quite a bit of offcut on this, but all those offcuts just go into the pile and we burn them inside our locomotives. So yep, just checking my blade angle here because the cuts weren't quite square. I'm having a wander off every now and again, just seeing how big these blocks look on the engine. I started with measurements and then I just winged it and did it all by eye in the end. So I'm trying to get the best amount of wood out of this because there's cracks in it and all sorts and knots and ugly parts in the wood. So I'm trimming it until I've got nice clean, or as clean as possible timber. There is still a couple of imperfections in the wood, but that's wood. That's how it goes. But this is nice. I think this is... it seems to be like an American white oak. Very, very rare that you get British oak anymore. And I think when Simon had bought this wood, he bought a load of pieces of oak for making displays out of and whatnot. And it was a very green oak, so it distorts. Then I move inside, put the coarsest grip belt on my belt sander I've got, make sure it's tracking nicely. And then I'm going to hook a hoover up to the bottom of my belt. So as the dust is coming off of the wood I'm sanding away, I'm able to capture as much of that as possible, stop it going up in the air and decorating everything in my workspace. And here I am winging it again. So I'm just grinding away a profile. I don't want them to be perfect. I want them to look nice. and I'm putting a kind of a rolled radius going out to one edge, and then just rounding off the other corners. And yeah, just go until it feels right. And then at one point I will be switching over to the opposite block. So I do one, use that as a template, mark out, and carry on and do it with the opposite one. Now I switch out belts, go for pretty much the finest belt that I've got, and also one that's already been soiled. So I'm not using brand new belts here, I'm just using old belts, and just getting everything a nice, smooth, even finish. And then finishing it off with a random orbital sander. I think I'm on about 240 grit sandpaper here, and just smoothing anything off, getting rid of any burns off of the cutting surfaces, and just smoothing everything out, making it look lovely. From there, I'm going to drop them in a pot. I'm just going to pour some boiled linseed over the top of it, and a pair of rubber gloves on, just going to massage it into the wood. Yep, not going for a heavy coat here, wiping it off with a rag, and a little bit of a buff. Pour the excess back into my pot, a little bit of a buff, and then I'm putting them up onto the buffer beams, doing what looks right here. So yeah, I'm marking the back of them for drilling out. I'm doing this purely by eye. I'm not doing any measuring here, just winging it. As I say, just want something that looks right. And using some lag bolts, I've ground the point off of the end of the screw part just to stop any chance of that poking through the face of the timber. And also helping to not split out the end of the wood. And yep, just get them nipped up, looking lovely. And I think they look bloody fantastic. Now that is pretty much all that's left on the board. I've got a little bit of colouring in the gaskets and touching up some of the paint job, but I'm not worried about that just now. I've got plates to make, and then John did a little bit and put fire choo-choo. But thank you for watching. Please like, comment and subscribe. I'll see you tomorrow.